Give them like 2 minutes to join daily.
Yes, yes. So, Dr. Ahmed, you can give the 2 minutes to the participants to join. Then, in 2 minutes, we can start this session.
Okay. Good morning. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Today we'll continue the Nile Basin Development Forum and welcome in the thematic area, ecosystem, sustainability, water quality too, investing in the water quality management. Have about 5 presenters today, have 5 papers will be presented. And after that, following the panel discussion with the 3 presenters of this paper, the paper is already named one strategic of the effective monitoring and management of the plastic pollution in the Nile Basin. The second one, managing plastic waste and improving access to affordable and clean energy, the case of Quaker venture. The third one, integrated modeling of nutrients dynamic in the Nile River Basin. The fourth one, financing water quality management in the Nile Equatorial Lakes region. The fifth, application of the multi-criteria decision analysis, MCDA, for ranking, identify water quality hotspot in the Nile Basin. We will start with the keynote speaker with Dr. France Grass Adongo, the Nile TAC member of Uganda. Welcome, Dr. France. The floor of you. Hello, Dr. Florence.
Hello,
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello, Dr. Ahmed.
Yeah, Dr. Jane.
Please, can you allow us like 2 minutes for more participants to join?
Sorry?
Can you allow us at least 2 minutes to allow more participants to join?
Okay.
Then when I will hand over to you, we'll continue with the presentation.
Okay. Then we'll some introduce for the paper presenter. Maybe just the name will be present today. Engineer Sami Osman from NIRSAP CU, and Dr. Nicholas Azza, and Dr. Hamdi Said, Utrecht University of the Netherlands. Also, Mr. Jamal Sunoko, and also have a ladies presenter today, Miss Mary Namukusu. Sorry for the name have something not familiar with me sometimes. Sorry for that. We hope can enjoy to this webinar. Will be more discussion and more information inside this webinar. Will be and the presenter will give you a lot of information. Start from the plastic pollution in the Nile River Basin, and about the multi-criteria analysis to support the decision making in the Nile Basin region. Also modeling for the nutrients dynamic in the river Nile Basin, and a lot of things will be gained in the end of this webinar. We hope so to enjoy the deliberation and discussion in this webinar.
Okay, thank you, moderator. Dear presenter and participant, my name is Namugize, Regional Water Quality Expert at the Nile Basin Initiative Secretariat in Uganda. I welcome to you all to the second session on water quality entitled Investing in Water Quality Management under the thematic area to ecosystem sustainability. Thank you for having accepted our invitation to this webinar, to authors for having submitted your research manuscripts and making yourselves available for this session. I know very well that you have received many emails from our sites. Dear presenter and participant, Nile Basin Initiative is an intergovernmental organization composed of 10 countries, established in 1999, with a shared vision objective to promote sustainable socio-economic development through equitable utilization of any benefits from the common water resources. More details on the history and the center of Nile Basin Initiative can be found at its website www.nilebasin.org. On behalf of the Nile Basin Initiative, I welcome you to the 7th edition of NBDF being held in the Republic of Uganda, and highly appreciate the Republic of Uganda for accepting to host this event. The organizing committee of this session is composed of myself, Engineer Sami Osman from NESAP-CU, and Engineer Simon Otungo from LVBC. For housekeeping, each session will last for 10 minutes, with the exception of the session of Dr. Azar, which will be for 20 minutes. I encourage the participants to use the question and the answer box for the question, and use the chat box for introduction, just to indicate their affiliation, their name. This session has the 5 presentations, and after all of presentation, we have 10 minutes of question and answer, and 20 minutes of panel discussion. I wish you fruitful discussion, but before handing over to the moderator, please allow me to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Florence Adongo, the Night of Uganda, for her passion, dedication to water quality management, which I highly always appreciated. We will have multiple responsibilities when it comes to water quality to make it a priority. And she has more than 30 years of experience at different levels. Before handing it to you, the moderator of this session is Dr. Ahmed Hassan. Dr. Ahmed Hassan is a chemical engineer, has a PhD in chemical engineering with more than 18 years of experience in a multi-environment discipline, such as water treatment, water quality, and water quality modeling. Without taking much of time, I wish all of you fruitful discussion. And now I hand over to Dr. Ahmed. So, Dr. Ahmed, moderator, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Jane. And we'll be start with Dr. Florence Adongo, NILTAC member of Uganda. Welcome, Dr. Florence. The floor is you. Hi, Dr. Florence. Hello, Dr. Florence. Dr. Florence, are you with us?
Yes, she's joining. She's joining now, connecting to audio. I'm sorry, Madam Florence, Dr. Florence, the floor is yours.
Welcome, Dr. France.
Okay.
Yes, you
Yes,
can
good
start now.
morning.
Good morning.
Sorry, I got disconnected. I don't know.
Okay.
Okay.
The floor is you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Moderator, the dear presenters and participants of the webinar on investing in water quality management. As you are all aware, hello?
Yeah.
Yes,
Hello?
we can hear you.
Hello?
We
Yes,
can hear you,
hear you.
Can
Dr.
you hear
Florence.
me?
Yes, we
Yes.
can.
Go ahead, Dr. Florence.
Okay, let me start again because, hello?
Yeah,
Let me
yeah.
start again.
Okay.
Yeah, dear presenters and participants, good morning. The Nile
Good
Basin
morning.
Development Forum, which we are here. As you are aware, the Nile Basin Development Forum is a high-level regional event that is convened every 3 years by the Nile Basin Initiative in collaboration with its member states and in partnership with the development partners. The event is a science policy practice dialogue that provide an opportunity for constructive reflection on contemporary information, knowledge, and best practices, as well as build partnerships among professionals within the basin and beyond. 7 editions have so far been held since 2006 in other countries. However, this is the first time it is being held in Uganda. We wish to appreciate the Republic of Uganda for accepting to host this 7th Nile Basin Development Forum. And all of you participants and the presenters who are in this webinar. Water quality management, which is the subject matter for today, is an interdisciplinary field that requires several stakeholders and expertises. The goal of water quality management is to protect human health, preserve ecosystem, and support various water uses, as well as maintain overall environmental sustainability. This therefore involves several activities, policies, and practices aimed at maintaining and enhancing the quality of water in natural water bodies so as to fulfill the purposes.
Hello, Dr. Florence. Hello.
We lost you, Dr. Florence.
Hello, Dr. Florence. Hello. I think we lost Dr. Florence. Hello?
Give her 1 to 2 minutes, doctor, and she will rejoin us.
Okay.
We will continue. Sometimes some, but we continue when she comes. So people start being sentence.
Hello, moderator.
Yeah, Dr. Jen.
Yeah, while we are waiting for Dr. Florence to rejoin again, we can continue with she's now back. I was suggesting if we lose connection with her, if we can we continue with presentations. Then when she rejoins, she present. Let's hear it now. If she can continue.
That is good. That's good.
I'm seeing
Okay,
her online.
Okay, that is good. Then we'll continue until Dr. Franz coming back. We'll start today the presentation with the paper of application of multi-criteria decision analysis, MCDA, for the ranking identified the water quality hotspot in the Nile Basin. The presenter will be Engineer Sami Osman is from NELSAP CU, the regional water resource engineer at NELSAP CU.
Dr. Florence just joined. Maybe she can continue her opening remarks.
You can continue, Dr. Florence. Are you here? I think lost again. Then we'll continue for the presentation, and after that, come back to Dr. Florence. We'll continue with the engineer Sami NELSAP from NELSAP Regional Water Resource Engineer at NELSAP CU, with 15 years experience in integrated water resource management and development, hydrodiplomacy, water supply and sanitation hygiene, WASH, and climate change. Engineer Sami is a graduate from a civil engineer from University of Khartoum, Sudan, and obtained his master's degree in hydro informatics of the NBDF Institute in the water education in Netherlands. Engineer Sami has managed and supervised the various national and regional and international water related projects. Within his working experience, he acquired project managerial and technical experience in the field of the water, integrated water resource management and climate risk assessment, and water supply and sanitation hygiene, including water quality management and water policy and strategy formulation, water resource modeling and decision support system, institution capacity building project, GIS and remote sensing. And actually, Engineer Sami now supervise and coordinate the thematic area of the water quality in the NELSAP CU. Engineer Sami, the floor is for you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed. Before I start, I see Dr. Florence has rejoined. So maybe I'll give her 1 minute so she can continue her opening remarks. Dr. Florence?
Okay, sorry, I don't know what, I've changed the computer now.
Okay, you can continue. You can continue.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay,
yes,
start,
Dr. Florence?
I've changed the computer, so I was moving, please.
It's okay.
Yes. Okay, I'll just continue for purpose of time.
Okay.
I think I was, yeah. So water quality management, the subject matter for today is an interdisciplinary field that requires several stakeholders and expertises. And we require capacity, human resource capacity, knowledge base, financial resources, infrastructure base, and also policies, institution rules and regulations that can help us. However, within the Nile Basin, of course, there are many challenges which range from complexity of our water systems, which crisscross about 10 or more countries, issue of data collection and analysis, infrastructure investments, regulatory compliances, impact of climate change that exacerbate water quality issues. Population is growing and urbanization is taking place, and we are striving for better life. And this is causing a lot of pollution, different types and complexities. We also look at, know that there are several opportunities that we can harness. And this includes technological advancements, public awareness, sustainable practices, and other nature-based solutions that we can leverage on, especially in terms of wetlands, which can be used for purification, and others. We also know that we can leverage private sector investment, international cooperation, research and innovation, and as well as help understanding our water resources and having better integrated planning, which can enhance our resilience. Dear presenters and participants, efforts have been made from Nile Basin Corporation on water quality management since 1974 in different areas with support from countries, but also from development partners. This includes having the Nile Transboundary Water Quality Monitoring Strategy 2007, but earlier we had sediment monitoring conducted under the Hydromet project, which was in 1974. We have also had within Lake Victoria Basin, the Lake Victoria Environment Management Program, phase 1 and 2. We have a Nile Transboundary Environment Action Project. We have the Eastern Nile Watershed Management Cooperative Regional Assessment Project, the Lake Victoria Environment Management Project, which I've already talked about, private sector for green growth in Lake Victoria Basin, Lake Victoria Basin Water Supply and Sanitation Projects, Lake Victoria Basin Integrated Water Resources Management Program, the design of sediment sampling network for the Nile Equatorial Lakes regions, and training of sediment modeling, together with assessments and studies that have been done to design these sediment monitoring systems in the Eastern Nile. Right now, we are having the water quality investment planning and prioritization being supported by World Bank. So in conclusion, while the Nile Basin faces significant challenges in maintaining water quality due to various human-induced and environmental factors, there are also promising opportunities for improvements, especially through deepening our Nile cooperation. Investments in infrastructure, sustainable practices, international cooperation, technological advancement, investments in policies and regulatory compliances, together with the engagement of communities at the lowest appropriate level, can all collectively contribute to better water quality management within the basin. We therefore need to take this opportunity to leverage resources from different areas so that we are able together to have an integrated water quality management program for the Nile Basin countries. I'm hoping that this is one of the subject matters that is going to be discussed, and I want to thank you very much and wish you very fruitful deliberations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Franz, for the key note and very strong words. Okay, now we'll continue with Engineer Sami for the first paper related to application of multi-criteria decision analysis for ranking, identify water quality hotspot in the Nile Basin. The floor is for you, Sami. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Doctor. And thank you very much, Dr. Florence, for the opening remarks. Can you see my screen? Perfect.
Yes, we see the
Okay.
screen.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So as the moderator just mentioned, I'm going to present the application of an MCA or a multi-criteria decision analysis for ranking identified water quality hotspots on the Nile Basin. My presentation will talk about a small introduction to the NBI, a background on the water quality, what is a multi-criteria analysis, the steps for conducting a water quality multi-criteria analysis, and then a conclusion. This I'll go through very quickly because already Dr. Jan gave us an introduction to the Nile Basin Initiative. It's an intergovernmental institution which has 10 active member countries. We are governed by the shared vision objectives is to achieve sustainable socioeconomic development through the equitable utilization of and benefit from the common Nile Basin water resources. Just focusing here on the strategy, the NBI strategy of 2017-2027, we have, of course, the nexus, which is water security, energy security, food security. But in the water quality terms, we also have goal number 4, which is environmental sustainability, which is protecting and restoring degraded ecosystem. We also have goal 5, which is climate change adaptation, and goal 6, which is strengthening the transboundary water governance. I'll give you a small background on the water quality and the water quality efforts on the Nile Basin. As just Dr. Florence mentioned, there's the LEVEMP 1 and 2 projects, even before that, the Hydromet projects in 1974, even before NBI was constituted. We have the NT project, we have and currently we have the Nile Cooperation for Climate Resilience project, which is ongoing, which has the thematic area of the water quality investment planning and prioritization. In general, there are several issues in water quality management in the Nile Basin. Just to highlight some, we have lack of data and monitoring. We have lack of capacity in water quality modeling. We have lack of harmonized water quality policies, institution and framework, and also the low level of awareness in terms of the importance of water quality in the Nile Basin. Now we'll jump to the MCA. What is MCA or what is multi-criteria analysis? In general, it's a term for a wide variety of techniques that can be used when faced with several competing options. It also allows to a variety of factors such as cost, policy priorities, stakeholder preferences, and environmental impacts. We use MCA in our daily basis. For example, if you want to buy a phone to compare between different phones, you check the status, you check the screen sizes, battery, camera, etc. So even when you compare buying a phone, you're actually conducting an MCA. Now, in terms of water quality, several MCA were conducted. These are some of the papers focusing on decisions, MCA analysis for selected neutral water supply infrastructures and also for integrated water quality assessment. There's some advantages and disadvantages of conducting an MCA. Some of the advantages are structured sequence of steps. It's a systematic, thorough process. It's open and accountable. And also there's an audit trail for decision, including any revision. Some of the disadvantages are that sometimes it's subjective to experts' options and personal preferences. And also it's not suitable to analyze a problem from scratch. So you have to know when to conduct the MCA. So here in the Nile Basin, with LBBC and NBD, Nile Basin Discourse, we first established a technical working group, taking into account government and local authority representatives, gender and social inclusion, and as I just mentioned, also Nile Basin Discourse and Lake Victoria Basin Commission. These are the list of the technical working groups from each member country. And this is one of the first meetings we conducted. The second stage is to compile a long list of hotspots. So we use literature review from also country feedbacks to list several hotspots, water quality hotspots in the Nile Basin. We used the previous projects such as the NTIP, the LEVEMP 1 and 2, and these are some of the documents that we reviewed. And from there, we have selected, along with the countries, 44 water quality hotspots. These are representing the 44 hotspots from each country. Some are inside the country and some are transboundary, but the overall number of hotspots are 44. Then we developed and adopted the MCA itself. So with the countries, we adopted a criteria, we developed and adopted a criteria that has 8 sub-criteria. It was agreed by the member countries. For the criteria were contaminant loading or receiving waters, the location of the hotspots, what is the country preference, and some impacts such as livelihood impacts, health impacts, environmental impacts, economic impacts, and also the source of pollution. Is it point source or a diffuse source? We also weighted these criteria, and for each criteria, you'll have a detailed assessment. Like, for example, criteria number 4, which is livelihood impacts. Does it have direct impact? Does it have indirect impact? Or does it have induced impacts? And each one of them has its own weight. Similarly, criteria 3, the country preference. Is this hotspot a preference for the country or not? And several hotspots on several criteria were also specialized like that. So we applied. We have the 44 hotspots, and now we have the criteria. So we applied this criteria into the 44 hotspots. We distributed them into 2 regions, the Eastern Nile region, which is shared between Ethiopia, South Sudan, Sudan, and Egypt, and the Nile region with the other countries. So when we applied the criteria into the hotspots of the Eastern Nile, you can find that the red one, which is in Lake Tana subbasin in Ethiopia, specifically the Jiljilabai subbasin, was the highest ranked hotspot, followed by the Blue Nile from Sinnar to Khartoum, and followed by the White Nile, which is from the border between South Sudan and Sudan. You can say from Malakal to Jebel Awliya. So these are the 3 highest hotspots. And for the Nile, and so for the Eastern Nile, the highest hotspot, as I mentioned, was the Jiljilabai in Lake Tana Basin in Ethiopia. For the Nile region, we applied the same criteria for the hotspots for the Nile region. You can see from here that the highest hotspots was the Lake Victoria Basin in the Tanzanian side. And to be specific, it's the Mwanza Gulf. The second hotspot was the Akagera River between Rwanda and Tanzania, and specifically in the Rusumo border. The third one was also Lake Victoria, but the side of Kenya. So it's in the Kisumu area. So from the application, the selected hotspot was the Lake Victoria Gulf in Tanzania, specifically in the Mwanza Gulf. So stage 6, as I just mentioned, is selection. Is the Mwanza Gulf, representing the highest hotspot, prioritized hotspot in the Nile region, and Jiljilabai subcatchment, representing the highest water quality hotspot in the Eastern Nile region. So a conclusion, just to give us a summary, this paper highlights the processes undertaken by NELSAP and the Water Quality Technical Working Group members to develop and apply a multi-criteria analysis methodology for ranking identified water quality hotspots. We have conducted a literature review, and a long list of 44 hotspots were identified. Subsequently, a set of water quality hotspot screening criteria consisting of 8 sub-criteria were developed and devised and adopted by the technical working group members from all countries. And then the MCA was applied to assess and prioritize and rank all these 44 hotspots, resulting in a ranked list. And 2 hotspots were selected for further studies and identification of interventions, structural interventions, and also non-structural interventions, There's also the focus on nature-based solutions. So this is a summary of this paper, of this presentation, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Engineer Sami, for good presentation and good paper, and a lot of information about the multi-criteria analysis, focusing with the water quality assessment in the Nile Basin, include the two main regions, the Eastern Nile region and Nile region. And you give us a lot of advantage and disadvantages of multi-criteria analysis, and also give us the steps is already you the Nile Basin did for start the NCCR project, start from establish for regional technical working group for the water quality, and after that looking for the literature to find or to found the hotspots, about the 44 hotspots already nominated in different countries in the Nile Basin, and after that going to the make like a criteria to apply for that 44 hotspots, and after that choose and number this hotspot, what the high ranking and what the low ranking, and start to start to assessment of the two hotspots in Eastern Nile region and two in the near region. Thank you, Sami.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
Okay. We'll follow Sami to the second paper with Dr. Said Hamdi, Utrecht University, the Netherlands. The paper integrated modeling of nutrients dynamic in the Nile River basin. Hamdi Said is a postdoc, a researcher at Utrecht University, the Netherlands. He also lectured at the Munufia University in Egypt. Hamdi academic career in the water energy include current post in undergraduate and master degree in civil engineer from Munufia University in Egypt. He holds a PhD in the water energy from the Center of Water System, the University of Exeter in the UK. Hamdi research interests cover the interdisciplinary area of the water resource management. He has a strong interest and experience in developing and applying system-based approach and modeling tools for water management, focusing on both water quantity and quality aspects in the catchment. Hello, Dr. Said Hamdi.
Hello, Dr.
The floors.
Hello, Dr.
Welcome in Nile Basin, and the floors for you.
Thank you. Let me
You have 10 minutes. You have 10 minutes.
Okay.
You can start.
So can you see the screen?
Yeah. Yes. Okay, you can start.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for organizing the session, for everyone contributed to this. So let's go directly to the topic and see what's the situation in the Nile Basin. So we have continued anthropogenic factor affecting the nutrient fluxes, and I'm referring here to the nutrient by the nitrogen and phosphorus, and is affecting their cycle in the Nile system. And of course, it affects the water quality. We have several driving forces: rapid population growth in the Nile countries, continued urbanization, and also agricultural intensification to meet the growing food demands from the growing population. We have also industrial development going in the Nile countries, also dam development and climate change. So all these factors affecting and will affect the nutrient fluxes in the Nile basin now and in the future. There are several forms for the nutrient pollution in the Nile. As you can see, there is eutrophication for inland and coastal water. We have also surface water and groundwater contamination by nutrients like nitrate and nitrite. We have, due to the pollution, loss of biodiversity, as in Lake Victoria, and we have health concern. However, there is a lack of comprehensive studies in nutrients in the Nile basin, and the sources of pollution can be classified into two main items: a point source, like from domestic and industrial waste, and non-point source from the agricultural runoff. As we can see, continued and high increase in the fertilizer use in the Nile countries, and also there's a difference between the use across the countries, and this situation will continue in the future, either for nitrogen and fertilizers, and also from the pesticides as well. To model this subject, we need an interdisciplinary and integrated models. So I'm using here an integrated model called integrated model to assess the global environment, dynamic global nutrient model, IMAGE-GGNM, which is integral part from an integrated simulation model that consider complex interaction of human activities and the environment and their impacts on the global sustainability. So IMAGE has been applied in environmental science and policy analysis, and that model comprised different but interconnected components: demography, economy, land use, and ecosystem. And that is the core of the model. And from that model, we can quantify the soil nutrient budget, and that also coupled to a hydrological model, which we use the BCR GlobeWeb to account for the fate of the nutrients to the surface and the groundwater. So we can account for the nutrients from the point sources and diffuse sources, and through the coupling of that model, we can quantify the export to the river and also to the groundwater. So the model is especially explicit model with a resolution of 0.5 degree and runs at annual time step. And it has been applied to quantify the nutrients in the at the global levels and also in river across the world. So for the case of the Nile here, I'm applying that model to the Nile system, and also extended that based for the nutrients. We have a process-based model which we account for the different inputs to the soil, from fertilizers, animal manure, biological infixation, and atmospheric deposition, and also account for the output from the crop harvesting and the ammonia volatilization. So that simply accounts for the inputs and the outputs, which we calculate the nutrient budget. And from the coupling with the hydrological model, we account for surface runoff and the leaching to the groundwater system. And through that, we account also for the fate through denitrification and the other in-stream process and the deposition to the river channel. So to account for the fluxes, we have an catchment, so we account for the nutrient flows which are coming from different sources, whether is it a point source or diffuse source, and applying that model, accounting for the in-stream process, we can estimate what's the nutrient outflow going from the river. So for the Nile system, we subdivided the Nile into sub-basin as shown here in the middle. So as we can see here, the inflow for the nitrogen fluxes for the different sub-basins, we can see here through the year it's increasing, and also the total exports from the rivers are increasing through the years. So, and that model has been applied from 1970 till 2015. And accounting for the in-stream process, we can see here the difference between the sub-basins. So having the larger retention on the White Nile, for example, we can see here it has the lowest output. The same story also applies to the phosphorus. We can see here gradual increase in the nutrient fluxes, whether it's flowing to the river or exporting from the river or the subcatchment. To account for the dominant sources, as I said, the model is an especially explicit model. So to account for the different sources, whether it's coming from point source, natural deposition, or it's happening in the agriculture system or the natural land, we can see here the difference between the countries. For example, in the downstream country, Egypt, you can see the dominance of the point sources is the dominant source of nitrogen transported to the river. In Equatorial Lake, we can see here the erosion from agriculture and also the natural deposition. And in the last few years, we can see the increase, the increase in agriculture system, whether it's in groundwater, which is in blue here, or in surface runoff, which indicating the anthropogenic effects on agricultural activities on the nutrient fluxes. And we are expecting that to happen in the future as well, particularly under rapidly growing population. And the same also for the phosphorus. You can see also a similar story, increase in the downstream country of Egypt due to point source. And also we can see here in Equatorial Lakes or the Blue Nile, however, it's a small contribution of the point source, but it's increasing. And similar picture for the erosion from the agriculture system is increasing in the last years. So to conclude that the nutrient pressure in the basin will increase due to increased food production to feed the growing population. The image DGNM can be used to quantify anthropogenic influences in nutrients in the Nile system. And the development plans, whether it's industrial or agricultural development plans, should consider the impacts of nutrients on water quality in the future. Thank you.
Hello, moderator. You are muted.
So sorry, Chair. Thank you, Dr. Said, for the informative presentation. Your presentation have a lot of information about the source of pollution, the two categories of source pollution, point source and non-point source. The point source coming from the industrial sector and non-point source coming from the agricultural sectors. And also using the model IMGE and DGNM integrated model for global environment. and dynamic global nutrient model. And after that, go into like more informative and more information about the process space for soil in content of nitrogen and phosphorus in the soil. For the input and output is already goes to do it in the model. And after that, you finalize by ending by the nitrogen and phosphorus inflow in the inflow stream, the sub-basing dominant source for the two parameter. Thank you, Dr. Said. Thank you. We'll continue for this very nice webinar to the next presenter will be Miss Mary Mukus. The paper strategies of the effective monitoring and management of the plastic pollution in the Nile Basin region. Miss Mary is an advisor of the water resource and climate change, climate and environment at the GIZ Uganda Transboundary Water Corporation in the Nile Basin Program. Her current work involved in supporting projects and addressing sustainable use and management of the wetlands and peatlands resource in the Nile Basin and plastic pollution. Namakus hold a Master of Science degree in tropical aquatic ecology from the University of Bern, Germany. She has been working in the International Development Cooperation for almost a decade, focusing on topics such as integrated water resource management, water source protection planning and implementation, water stewardship through building public-private and partnership of the circular economy. Welcome, Miss Mary. The floor's for you. You can share your screen, Miss Mary.
Thank you, moderator.
You have 10 minutes. You can start now.
Yes. Are you able to see my screen?
Not yet. You can share your screen now.
Apologies for that. I'll try to do it again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now clear. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, moderator. Thank you, participants and fellow presenters for this opportunity. I would like us to go into another presentation, which is a little bit of less science and less graphs. So I hope we shall enjoy also this presentation. And I would like to talk about plastic pollution in the Nile and what strategies we would like to put in place or are in place to monitor plastic pollution in the Nile Basin. But before we go into the details, I think the big question we should ask ourselves is why should we even care about plastic pollution? Why should we be having this conversation amongst ourselves? And if you just look at this picture, I'm sure wherever you're joining from, this picture is taken from Uganda, to be specific, but I'm sure wherever you're coming from, you've seen similar pictures in your home country, either in a nearby water body, or even in the Nile itself, or the tributaries of the Nile. Plastic pollution is an increasing challenge of our time. And given the topic of this webinar, water quality, we cannot, I think, afford to have a discussion about water quality without talking about plastic pollution, given its severe effects to the humans, to the environment, and also to the ecosystem at large. So why are we having this conversation, so to speak? As you can see on the picture on the right, plastics, most of the consumption, I think, is happening on the land. I don't think the organisms that are living in the water or in the ecosystems are consuming plastics, but I'm sure you can identify with some of the products in this picture, like the straws, the paper bags, the water bottles, the soda bottles, all these kind of things. They are ending in our water bodies, and as a result, they are really affecting the ecosystem. And most of the studies that have been done around plastic pollution actually indicate that population is one of the biggest triggers to the plastic pollution problem, and more especially because of our consumer behavior. We are asking for more and more. When we go to supermarkets, we are looking on as they pile polythene bags or plastic bags in the items that we are consuming. So it's one of the, us ourselves, we are part actually of the problem. Looking at the plastic outflow across the world, as you can see from this map, this study estimates the amount of plastic pollution entering the oceans through the rivers or the river systems globally. And as you can see from this map, most of the entry or outflow is really in India, Indonesia, and I'm sure you're looking at the African part and you're not seeing anything around the Nile, but it's coming in a few minutes. I try to zoom in a bit. There is also another study which has been done on plastic outflow on river systems across the world. And as you can see, I think I'm not able to, to zoom. But if you look at the area around the Nile Basin, we are not doing badly, but also we are not doing good. At least you see around areas, Sudan, Egypt, maybe also Tanzania, Kenya. Yeah, the figures are a bit increasing every now and then. And coming to the Nile, I just want to invite you to just put in your Google or in ChatGPT now, because it's, I think, the new kid on the block. Just put in plastic pollution in the Nile and see what kind of headings you will get. And across actually the basin, it's not only a case for Uganda, not only a case for Kenya, not only a case for Egypt, not only a case for Sudan, but you actually get various stories published around the plastic pollution issue in the Nile. And I think the most recent has really been on the plastics, microplastics in the fish, which we are consuming. But by and large, there are quite a number of now stories that are capturing the plastic pollution issue in the Nile, and it's time to take action. So what has the Nile Basin done on this issue in collaboration with partners? The GIZ Global Marine Litter Project has worked hand in hand with NBI to commission a study to understand the plastic waste transportation of the Nile. And this study is available on the Nile Basin website. And it tries to highlight the issues around plastic pollution in the Nile Basin. It gives also specific reports on each of the NBI member states on this issue of plastic pollution. It also attempted to map some of the hotspot areas of plastic pollution in the Nile Basin. The study also gives or summarizes some of the recommendations or what can be done or what the Nile Basin can do to try to address this issue of plastic pollution. It also highlights what are some of the gaps when it comes to monitoring plastic pollution in the Nile. This project is not only being done in the Nile Basin, GIZ also is supporting other transboundary water bodies, commissions in Africa to try to understand the issue of plastic pollution. For example, as you can see from this map, doing some work. This project is also supporting the Mekong River Commission to look at this issue of plastic pollution. Also the Indian Ocean Rim Association and a few other transboundary bodies in Africa. Some of the challenges that this study highlighted around the issue of plastic pollution monitoring in the Nile and its member states. The challenges are actually quite many, but most of them rotate around the policy and the regulatory framework, the capacities to monitor plastic pollution. Also, the data gaps, there are quite significant data gaps, and also approaches do exist actually to monitor plastic pollution by different stakeholders in the countries, but some of these efforts are non-coordinated. Probably you have data lying around with the citizens somewhere or some institutions, and there is really no harmonized approach to monitor and report on the issue of plastic pollution in the Nile. That said, we have phase 2 of this project, of the Marine Plastic Pollution Project, building on the experiences from phase 1 and the key recommendations from phase 1 of this project. We are now moving into phase 2 of this project, whereby we would like to explore and document some of the existing approaches for monitoring plastic pollution in the Nile. And this phase will focus specifically on macroplastics. And we are also exploring, or we are going to explore really the strategy of using citizen science. As you, some of you might have attended the presentations from yesterday. There was really some strong discussions or good discussions around how we can use citizen science to try to fill the data gaps around water quality in the Nile Basin. So we would like to commission a study to try to understand what are some of the existing approaches around microplastic pollution in the Nile Basin, who are the stakeholders doing this kind of monitoring, such that we come up with a harmonized approach, and also even try to scale up some of these interventions. We would also like to continue strengthening the capacity of NBI member states in monitoring macroplastics in the Nile Basin, Fortunately, NBI has already a strategy on water quality monitoring, and the issue of plastic pollution or plastic monitoring in the Nile fits well in the broader strategy of NBI. So it's not all lost, much as we have all these headlines in the media about the Nile choking. There are also strategies which are being put in place or are put in place to intentionally try to address the issue of plastic pollution in the Nile Basin. Over. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Mary. I'm very happy to saw the GIZ effort related to effective monitoring of the plastic waste pollution. And your presentation is very informative and have a lot of information. Start from why we should caring about the plastic pollution at all, and going to overview of the plastic pollution flow in the region and globally. And after that, focusing about the phase one about the plastic pollution in Nile River region. And also you mentioned about the microplastic is already found in the fish tissue. And this is a very high impact. It means like a very negative impact about the pollution. And actually, I'm very happy to have like a phase two from plastic pollution in the Nile region, because I'm participated in the phase one to validate your report. And thank you, Miss Mary, thank you. I remind to take a participant, to encourage participant to write the question in the Q&A window to let the presenter can answer the question you already raised by you. And now we'll continue to the next presenter, and next paper will be by Dr. Nicholas Azza about the financing water quality management in the Nile region. Dr. Azza holds postdoc diploma in the Master of Science degree in water quality management from IHE Delft, and doctorate in the freshwater ecology and limnology also from IHE Delft. Dr. Azza is the water resource expert with the 32 years of professional experience in integrated water resource management, transboundary water governance, national and regional water policy, and water quality and environmental management. Dr. Azza head of Uganda's National Water Quality Laboratory before leaving to join the NBI as the regional water policy expert. Dr. Azza also now works as a freelance consultant and had carried out assignments of the African Minister Council in the Water, AMCAO, the African Development Bank, and many of the regional economic community and transboundary lake rivers basin organization in the Eastern and Southern Africa. Okay, Dr. Azza, the floor's welcome, and the floor's for you. You can start now.
Thank you very much, moderator. The theme of our webinar, the title of our webinar is Investing in Water Quality Management. And in the discussion of investing in water quality management, financing is key. So where is that money that we need to use to deal with all these water quality challenges we have been seeing? I have a simple presentation. I'll be scanning through the various sources of financing that are used for water quality management and commenting on the extent to which they are important in our area of water quality management. Now, there is no special unique window that is used for financing water quality. The same sources are used for water sector financing that water quality draws upon. So this discussion is applicable to the water sector in general. And we are talking, of course, of financing water quality management because we have a lot of challenges. And you have been hearing from all the presentations since yesterday of the various challenges that we have in the basin. Before I can start scanning through the sources of financing, a quick one on what are the things that we need to finance. The things that we need to finance to manage water quality are very broad, and they need a broad range of financing sources, from financing of recurrent type of activities to capital investment for infrastructure development. And the needs are across multiple sectors, as the TAC introduced this morning, that it is multidisciplinary. The needs don't just fall in the traditional water sector, but they span beyond the water sector. And the needs include such things as policy and standards development, strengthening the regulatory framework, establishing and operating and maintaining ambient water quality monitoring networks. We had a number of presentations on this yesterday. Establishing and operating water quality analytical laboratories and the equipment that you need and accreditation and all things associated with that. Effluent discharge permit administration and compliance monitoring, waterborne disease surveillance, construction and operation of water treatment works, construction and operation of wastewater treatment works, fecal sludge management yards, and so on. Construction and operation of common treatment systems in special economic zones. You may have an area where there's a concentration of industry, and then you plan to have common treatment facilities for those. You need financing for that. Promotion of cleaner production in industry, collection, transportation, safe disposal of municipal waste, constructing sanitary landfills in our municipalities, management of municipal stormwater, watershed management, soil and water conservation, like we have been seeing in the Abe-Gilgal Basin, disaster risk management. A lot of disasters destroy water facilities and water treatment works and flood wastewater treatment facilities, and institutional capacity, amongst others. This is not exhaustive, but these are the areas for which we need to find financing. So setting up and operating laboratories is one of the areas for which we need financing. Let's start our journey by looking at the traditional sources of financing. But before that, we acknowledge that financing in water quality management or in the water sector in general is dominated by public sources. And the reason for that is that water resources management is regarded as a public good. A public good is a commodity or service that is made available to all members of society and is paid for by governments through money that they raise through taxations. And even water supply and sanitation, to some extent, is regarded as a public good because in 2010, the UN General Assembly recognized access to water and sanitation as a basic human right. That means access to water and sanitation is not supposed to be entirely dependent on ability to afford, because it is a fundamental human right. In the water sector, traditionally, it is considered that to have sustainable financing, you need to take care of three principal sources, and they're called the 3 T's. The first is taxes, the second T is tariffs, and the third T is transfers. We'll look at those traditional sources. Taxes is the first T, and T effectively refers to transfers from national governments and regional governments to departments or government agencies to implement activities related to water quality management. These are departments that do not, by law, have the legal means to raise their own resources. This is an important source of financing for the water quality management and the water resources management sector in general. Looking at the infrastructure side, over Africa, financing from governments contributes to, national governments contributes to 42% of the infrastructure financing in the entire Africa in the water sector. If you consider that the national governments also bear the biggest burden of recurrent financing, then their contribution to the sector can go to beyond 50% up to sometimes 60%. That graph is taken from the report of 2010 of the Infrastructure Consortium for Africa, showing the purple line above there being the biggest contributor to the water sector in terms of infrastructure development. Governments, national governments derive their revenue from taxes. That's why the first T is taxes, and there are various taxes that the governments use to raise the resources that they need to be able to have to implement their programs. Value-added tax, corporate tax, excise duty, withholding tax, tax on mobile money, tax on airtime, tax on all sorts of things. In general, the revenues that our governments are able to collect from tax is low relative to the demands for public expenditure. So the income is not as high as the expenditure. And that's why a proportion of our national budgets are financed from external sources. Our African governments have set for themselves targets of the amount of financing that the national government should do to provide sufficient financing to the water sector in general. There's the Ethekwani Declaration in South Africa, where the heads of state gathered, AMCA ministers, and they committed themselves to allocating at least 0.5% of GDP to sanitation and hygiene. And that was reiterated under the Mbo Declaration in 2015. In the Pan-African conference in 2003, they committed themselves to allocate at least 5% of the national budget to the water sector. By and large, these commitments have not yet been realized. Few countries are able to meet these targets that the countries have committed themselves to, and even those countries that meet these targets do not do it consistently year after year. So in this area, the first T of taxes, the national authorities that are responsible for raising tax are an important partner. The building that you see on the right is the headquarters of the Uganda Revenue Authority, and the one on the left is the headquarters of the Rwanda Revenue Authority. They're important because it's the principal source of revenue for funding of government programs, especially water quality, which has a large component of recurrent expenditure, and that is mainly borne by the national governments. I have mentioned that the tax is low. The collections are low. The reason being, one, the tax base is low. There are not many areas to tax. Our industrial sector is not yet that very developed. Service sector leads in terms of GDP generation, but it is also not that strong. So our governments do not have many areas to tax. That's one of the reasons the collections are low. The tax rates are low. The tax amounts that are charged are low as compared to the developed world. There is moderate efficiency. There are still a number of eligible entities that escape and dodge paying tax. And then there is also leakage. Not all of the resources that are collected are available to the central government. So these are the issues why the collections are low. Financing to the water sector typically is below 5%. It has not reached those targets. And within the water sector, the bulk of the allocation goes to water supply and sanitation and water quality management and water resources management generally get low allocation. And recurrent operations where water quality monitoring is included, where hydrometric network operation is included, generally suffer because of the inabilities of government to provide enough resources for this type of activities. The second T in the traditional funding sources is tariffs. That is a charge for the water supply services that are provided by utilities. And what we note is that they are insufficient. Only half of the utilities in Africa are able to cover the operation and maintenance costs from the charges for tariffs. And because many of the utilities are not able to break even, they are not attractive to private finance, because private people can't come where they cannot recover their resources. So we miss that because of the inefficiency of the utilities. And what are the reasons that tariff is not as important as it could be? There is low affordability. A lot of the populations are poor. They can't afford high tariffs. But even where they are able to afford, there is politicization of tariffs. Politicians incite the local populations to reject an increase in tariffs, even when the population is able to afford those increases in tariffs. Billing efficiency is not very high in some of the municipalities. There are still many eligible people that are not billed. And then there is high non-revenue water. There's a lot of input in producing water that is not billed, as that does not generate a revenue. Besides tariffs, other government departments that are not able to charge tariffs have other charges through which they collect some revenue. There's a user fee that is charged for people that have abstraction permits to abstract water, surface of groundwater. Polluter pays fees by entities that hold a wastewater discharge permit. People that require laboratory services, that people or researchers that need to purchase data. So these are different sources of revenue, but in general, there is a small fraction of what the different departments for water quality management need to sustain their operations. In some of the countries, the user departments are able to retain these revenues and directly use them, but in other countries, these collections go straight to national treasury, and they are not retained by the departments that generate this revenue from the services that they provide. The third and the last T is transfers, external transfers, or what we call official development assistance. And it comes from multiple sources, from multilateral development banks, such as the World Bank, the European Investment Bank, the African Development Bank, but also regional development banks like the Eastern Africa Trade and Development Bank of COMESA, from international development cooperation organizations, donor countries, and from UN agencies. This source of financing can take many forms: public grants which are not repaid, loans that have to be repaid with an interest, technical assistance, and climate finance is also an additional form of transfer, external transfer. They account in total from 30 up to 60% of the financing of the water sector. But we note it is getting increasingly difficult for countries in sub-Saharan Africa to mobilize transfers. And a point to note is that in our region, the two investment arms of NBI, Entro and NELSA, have only managed to mobilize financing for 16% of the projects they have prepared. Over the 170, only 16% have secured financing. So there is still a challenge to mobilize external financing. What are the reasons for this? A high debt burden of the partner states in the region, and therefore that limits their ability to take on new loans since they are suffering with repaying the loans that they have. Donor fatigue, they are getting tired. Emerging priorities such as climate change and the war in Ukraine, global economic slowdown, lack of well-prepared investment projects, even where you have donors willing to provide financing, it is a challenge in our continent to find well-prepared and bankable projects. And lastly, hydropolitics, especially in a transboundary setting where a regional hegemony may work behind the scenes to prevent other partner states mobilizing or accessing development finance. There is a big gap that the water sector is able to raise in financing from those traditional sources. It is inadequate. Just looking only at the area of infrastructure, and of course, water quality needs a lot of infrastructure input in terms of building water treatment plants and wastewater treatment plants. The annual investment in infrastructure in the water sector is 10 to 12 billion per year, US dollars, 10 to 12 billion per year. but the requirement to be able to meet the SDG targets is in the range of 58 to 68 billion per year. And therefore, the gap is about 3 times what the sector is able to mobilize each year. And you must all be aware of the JMP report on SDG 6, which shows that Africa needs to increase its level of effort by many times to be able to reach the SDG targets in 2030. So we've looked at the traditional sources, and the message is that they're inadequate. Private sources of funding, because the traditional sources are all public sources. Private sources are being heralded as a new potential source that would help bridge the financing gap that the water sector has. However, it is important to note that private capital can only be mobilized and attracted where there is a commercial component in the projects and where there is ability for repayment and return on investments. And many of the water sector projects are not of a nature that has a commercial component. The chart on the right is showing where private financing is being deployed in the infrastructure development sector in Africa in general. And we see that transport, energy, and ICT sectors have shared equally about a third each of the total private sector financing in Africa. And water sector only takes 1% of the private sector financing in Africa because it is not that attractive. And which are the sources of private sector? They can be commercial banks, they can be private companies or businesses, insurance companies and reinsurance companies, entrepreneurs, investment funds, pension funds. They are important sources of financing. And the countries are thinking of also tapping into diaspora funds. They have still not got a mechanism, but that is increasingly looking like a potential source of private financing for the public sector. The private funds may be in the form of grants that we get from philanthropic organizations. They are not repaid, such as the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They provide grants to the water sector in sanitation. They may be in the form of debts, loans that have to be repaid, equity, raising resources through sale of shares, or credit guarantees, or political insurance. And there are different models by which these financing can come to the water sector: build, operate, and transfer, especially for example, the energy sector. You may have a private investor signs an agreement with government, builds a power facility, operates it, recovers capital, hands it back. So there are a number of models by which the water sector can tap into private finance. But it is generally low for the water sector. The reason being poor credit worthiness of the sector. A lot of the utilities do not break even, they are not attractive for private sector to come in. The perception of political and regulatory risk in Africa and recent events in Africa do not help the situation. The coups in West Africa continue to increase the vastness of the African continent for investment. Bureaucracy, red tape, and corruption is another hindrance. And of course, utilities not being commercially viable for private sector financing. However, we note that despite private financing being low in the water sector, there is a trend for it. It is growing now through FDI, foreign direct investment, especially in waste recycling and renewable energies, in solar, in biogas production, and so on, through corporate responsibility, especially corporations that contribute or have a high carbon footprint. They're increasingly contributing to efforts to manage watersheds better and the water quality benefits from that. Also through payment for ecosystem services schemes, which are increasing in the region and the source for tapping into private finance. So waste recycling and waste management is an area where we're having increasing input from the private sector, especially where there's a strong business case. That photo is showing the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Water on the right, receiving a dummy check from Stanbic Bank through corporate responsibility. They are supporting tree planting campaign of the ministry. That is another private sector group supporting also as corporate responsibility, supporting the ministry's tree planting and of course, water quality benefits where the watershed is well managed. I have mentioned that payment for ecosystem services is also an increasing area of private finance into the water sector. This should not be confused with an ecological tax or environmental protection tax. Payment for ecosystem schemes are voluntary, and they exist where there are service providers in the upstream parts of catchments, and then there are service buyers in the downstream parts who benefit from the activities of those upstream, and where there's a mechanism by those who are downstream and are willing to pay for the services to transfer payment to the upstream people that are taking care of the catchment. There are many examples within our region on working payment for ecosystem service schemes. The Nairobi City has such a scheme by which utilities and corporates in Nairobi City pay people to manage better. Uluguru Mountains, another scheme. Eastern Usambara Mountains, another scheme. We have other schemes where landowners in wildlife migration corridors are paid not to erect fences which can prevent wildlife from migrating. Also, people who have private land on which their forests are compensated by corporates not to cut their trees because of the beneficial effects of those trees to climate change mitigation. Those are pictures of the viable payment for ecosystem schemes and the benefits you see for managing the upper catchments. The streams are very clean. That is an intake for the water supply of Dar es Salaam City on the Ruvu River. And the upstream part is degraded and the river comes with a lot of silt. As you see it there, it is being addressed through a payment for ecosystem services scheme. There are now, as I conclude, what I imagine as innovative financing approaches, and they are largely impact types of investment. These are investments that are made with the intention of generating a positive, measurable social and environmental impact alongside a financial return. One such type of impact financing is a green bond. This is a loan taken by the borrower, and the borrower intends to use it for climate-related environmental projects. And the lender is motivated to provide the loan because it will be applied for climate-related type of activities. And the type of impact financing is called a blue peace bond, and where the borrowers will take the money and use it for transboundary water resources development infrastructure projects. And this being piloted in Senegal and the Gambia river basins in West Africa. Then we have nature bonds that are being championed by nature conservancy. Yes, I'm concluding. Thank you. Thank you. Let me move to that's the nature conservancy impact types of bonds. Conclusion: public financing from national transfers is a dominant source of financing and will continue to be the dominant source of financing for the foreseeable future. Water quality management, because water quality management is a public good. And in all of the countries within the Nile, this financing from the national government is inadequate. Long-term sustainability for financing of water quality management relies on increased government revenue collections because it's a primary source of financing for this sector. And for the water quality and the water sector in general to be able to access increased financing, it needs to be better at articulating its importance, its important contributions, especially in terms of economic terms. And capacity building is needed for the sector to be able to provide, to be able to prepare projects that can attract financing and also tap into the new sources of financing. Thank you, Chair, and apologies for going over time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Azza, for very huge information about the financing for the water quality management. And your presentation really have a lot of information about what things will be financed and what the kind of finance distribute to 2 or 3 category. And you mentioned the whole thing about the water quality and management and water supply coming from the public sector, including the cleaning, production, discharge, and others. and also mention the taxes did by the country to support and to finance the water sectors, and you are finally coming with the international support from the ODA. It means like external transfer by external transfer, and also have some challenge for that. Thank you, Dr. Azza. Before we go into the last paper, I encourage the participant to write the question for the previous papers in the Q&A box in the Zoom portal to let the presenter have something to answer the question. Going now to the fourth or the fifth presenter about the paper, Mr. Jamal Snuku. The paper, Managing Plastic Waste and Improving Access of Affordable and Clean Energy, the case of KUKA Venture, Mr. Jamal Snuku, KUKA Venture Innovation Hub, Kampala, Uganda, is a driven, purposeful of and hardworking young man who is deeply passionate about the growing his business and leveraging his network, increasing environmental awareness and participation by everyday citizens. As the both of CEO and founder the KUKA Venture, Sunoku is president of the recycling focus manufacturing company that aims to design environmentally friendly cooking materials such as LPG using solid waste plastic. Growing up in the humble family background of 8, Sunoku experienced firsthand the daily struggle for the access of essential needs of life, including clean cooking energy within his community. The upbringing fueled his determination of the pioneer alternative clean energy solution using plastic waste as enabled. Sunoku is the passionate environmental entrepreneur with a focus on the circular economy sector with 5 years of experience in the waste management, polymer raw material, waste conversion method, and venture development. He brings wealth, knowledge, and expertise to his field. Sunoku studied environmental science and technology at Portland State University. Through his remarkable work, Sunoku had gained recognition as one of the 30 young environmentalists to follow the African by Living Earth, further highlighting his commitment to make a positive impact on the environment and lives of this living with it. Welcome, Mr. Jamal Sunuku. The floor's you. You have 10 minutes to present your paper. You can start now, Mr. Sunuku. You can share your
Well, thanks for this opportunity. Unlike other papers, I would differ from them as I give the case of Chuka Ventures, how we are solving the problem of poor waste management, about our technology, how we help people, and all is in the case of Chuka Ventures. And you allow me share my screen. My computer network is not stable. I'll use oh sure.
Okay.
I'm not sharing.
Dr. Jen, can you allow Jamal to share the screen?
Is allowed. I think it's allowed. Or I can share the.
No, he's sharing.
Okay, it's okay now.
Okay, okay.
Well, I'm using my phone.
Okay,
Well,
okay, clear.
Well, my name is Sonkwe Jamal, and I'm the wisdom behind Chuka Ventures Innovation Hub. Chuka Ventures is located in Western Uganda, and part of the office is located in Ichitezi, along a landfill to support our daily operation. Shortly, you are going to allow me, I take you back to my early days when I was still a kid. Well, coming up from a humble family background of a peasant farmer in rural Uganda makes me humble by default and curious by upbringing. So when I was growing up, access to essential needs of life, such as clean cooking energy, were daily struggles for my family and community. I recall very well my sister and I survived fire and suffocation due to the use of rudimentary cooking. And I share the same experience with over 10 million people in Western Uganda. So currently, I am not a father, hopefully, but I am an uncle. I'm an uncle, two girls, Jane and Mary, and I've been taking care of them since they were young, while helping them with my sister. But I noticed something very interesting. The amount of waste, such as diapers and plastics, they use every single day. It's mind blowing. So I got to wonder, where does this waste go when we throw them away? For us, they end up in our drainages, where they are blocking them, rivers, where they're polluting water bodies, causing waterborne diseases, and Lake Victoria, where they are becoming a threat to marine life. So I got to wonder, who is coming up with a solution? It's I, Sonko Jamal, with my team from Chuka Ventures, with a solution for this. We developed salt-free reactive extraction technology that helps us in extraction of 12 different polymers using our patent pending profile beginning. Well, to make our product, we start by correcting waste, cleaning and shredding. Then we use our patent pending profile beginning to produce a fuel that burns with 35.8% megajoules calorific value. So this energy burns cleanly with 76% less carbon, which is the most potent indoor pollutant. The energy is indeed essential in cutting down the cases and deaths of respiratory diseases caused by emissions of dirty fuels. The energy is not only cheaper, but also cleaner compared to conventionally used fuels. Our ultimate goal is bringing impact to the entire world through deploying efficient waste management technologies and producing cleaner fuel alternatives. Well, in our journey to enhance and boost clean energy in the rural setting, we are targeting 20,000 households, that is our beachhead market in Katanga, to access clean and affordable energy. Since our inception, we have impacted over 15,000 households with our clean and affordable energy. We have saved 2,800 tons of carbon, reached to 8,000 homes, and currently we are producing 2,800 liters of gas. Those are the cylinders, and monthly we recycle between 5 to 8 tons of plastic waste. Well, for our climate impact, we are reducing emissions of our beachhead market by 91% per year. We are also mitigating methane emissions from dump sites that take place when this waste is disposed of the dump sites and biodegradable through the 500 years that it takes. With Chuka Ventures, we are going to have cleaner landfills oceans and lakes and rivers. We have also created over 300 direct and indirect jobs with our work. Well, Chuka Ventures is a B2B social enterprise, and we make our product that we use at our homes, and we sell it at a rate of 1.3 USD per liter. For our customers, we are giving them a fuel that is cleaner, that is going to save them from indoor pollution. The fuel is easy to ignite, price stability is constant, and there are zero carbon monoxide emissions involved. Therefore, no risk of dying due to poisoning. Well, for our financials at Chuka Ventures, we are targeting to make 86,000 euros a year, USD a year, with a market share of 25% over a market of 20,000, with our key drivers being the price of the product, cost of the product, and market share. Well, currently, Chuka Ventures is facing a challenge of meeting a growing demand due to limited production capacity. Doing all this, we are seeking to raise 300,000 USD, and if we are to solve poor waste management at Chuka Ventures by 2030, we hope to use these funds in procuring a semi-auto plastic heating machine. That is part of the 15% of the funds. We also hope to market and pilot to new regions using 35% of the funds, and having our plants near residential areas. Safety must be our primary concern. We can therefore use 35% of the funds to improving our LPG storage facility. And lastly, 15% can be used in building our gas micrometering capacity, and also undertaking research and development. If nothing is done now, by 2050, there will be more waste in lakes and rivers than fish itself. You know what that means. And managing all this, I have an amazing team with interest in clean and affordable energy, bringing 7 years of experience in recycling and waste management. At Chuka Ventures, we want to take care of this planet and how people live within it. We want to take a risk on behalf of this planet because we know we have one. When you join us in this revolution to fight climate change and poor waste management, it can really be a great humanitarian opportunity of our time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jamal Sunuku. Have a very innovative and good presentation. Your paper, you already you found the solution for the very big problem about the plastic bottle and plastic waste, and you already give us the information about your business, and I think your business is very nice business, and I think it will be grow with time soon.
Yeah, sure.
I'm really amazing your I think your price about the price for the cylinder, $0.69 $0.69, I think so. That's true.
Well, our fuel, 1 liter of the gas costs.
Okay. It's very nice, very nice. We hope so. Your presentation and your paper will solve many things about the climate change because already you reduce.
Fuel costs, for example, the gas 1 liter costs 1.03.
Sorry, I'm not hearing you, Jamal.
about our cylinders, we have.
Can you make your voice?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Well, I was saying that about our fuel, 1.03 USD, that is for 1 kilogram, or 1 liter of LPG, that is liquefied petroleum gas. Then about our packaging, so far we have the 6 kg and 14 kg, 14.2 kg. Those are mostly used cylinders or commonly used cylinders for the low-income households, which is our beachhead market or our target customers.
Okay. Your project and your business will help the climate change a lot because already reduce the emission a lot. Thank you, Jamal. Thank you. Now I will encourage the participant to write the question in the Q&A box. We can start, I think, Dr. Jane, if you agree, we will start the Q&A session because the paper now is already did the final paper to be present today. We'll go for the session of the Q&A. Dr. Jane?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, Dr. Ahmed, we can continue the Q&A session.
Okay, I can read some question from the Q&A box. This question from anonymous attendee to Engineer Sami. What the water quality hotspot analysis indicates, and what are the main causes of the water quality created in the Nile and Eastern Nile? The Gilgala by direct tributary to the Nile in Eastern Nile, or it enters to the other water body. The first one.
Doctor, I have a proposal.
Okay.
So far, 90% of the questions are already answered. Only one was not yet answered, and I believe it's from Ms. Jackie. Maybe you can give the audience, because I see people raising their hands from the attendees to ask, because all the questions that are written, we are already answering them.
Okay, going for the audience, and so okay, okay, I will give Muhammad Saleh Muhammad Yasin. Dr. Muhammad Saleh. Hello, Dr. Muhammad Saleh.
Yes, now open it.
Okay, can give to.
Maybe Patrick can allow him to
Okay.
ask the question.
Patrick. Hello, Patrick. Hello, Dr. Jane. Can you ask Patrick to allow Dr. Muhammad Saleh to ask the question? Hello, Dr. Jane.
Yes, we're waiting to give him access.
Okay.
Meanwhile, as Sami was indicating, most of the question is in the chat box.
Yes.
In the Q&A box have been responded to. Only what is remaining is the question from Nairitaki, Rwanda. Jacqueline?
Yes.
Yes. So we can ask the presenter of that session,
okay.
after Nicholas, if he can respond to that question from Nile Tech Rwanda. Then if you have other questions, we can roll them. Otherwise, we may continue with the last session. When we finish with these questions, we can go to the discussion. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I think Jacqueline now is online. Jacqueline.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, moderator. Good morning, all. Thank you for the presenter. It's not even a question. Yes, it's a concern from the presentation by Dr. Azza. Let me clarify, because writing sometimes you can't say what you need. He presented the financing of water quality management, and he expressed the source of financing, what do we need to finance those traditional sources, and when he say to involve private sector, I know in every presentation or every meeting, we say engage private sector in water sector. But my concern, as I put it in a Q&A, you see in water sector, there is no more private sector really investing in that sector as in agriculture and other sectors or industry. My concern was why. Maybe is it because they don't see the value of water, or they don't see a direct benefit from water sector, or is it a issue of finance? Maybe the means are very huge. So we need really from the Dr. Ada as the consultant, maybe if he can tell us why. And most of project coming from water sources like hydropower, you will see the value of water is not even seen. You will construct a hydropower. After that, you have energy and sell the energy, but the source of that energy, it's water. Even in the agriculture, food, it is water. But to see the value, direct value or benefit from water sector, it's very difficult. So we need really to hear from him to know how really this private sector can be engaged, either if we can have a lot of researchers, papers showing really the value of water in our GDP. Thank you so much, moderator. I submit.
Thank you, Miss Jacqueline. Okay, Dr. Azza, you can respond.
Thank you, moderator, and thank you, Jacqueline. Indeed, it is common every time you are talking about financing in the water sector that the actors in the water sector are urged to tap into private finance, which is seen as a new source of finance that can be used to bridge the gaps in public finance. But we need to understand the motivation that people in the private sector have to finance whatever they finance. One is a commercial motivation, the intention to earn a profit. That is one of the things that would motivate a private business to put money. And the water sector is not that attractive commercially as compared, for example, to the energy sector or to the transport sector or to ICT sector. In the energy sector, a private investor may invest their capital in building a power generation plant, and they will sign a power purchase agreement with the government that will guarantee that when they have built the plant and are generating, government will buy power from them over many years, allowing them to recover their capital with the profit. And so that motivates them to invest. The same for the transport sector. If a government finances a road with private financing, it will have to have mechanisms to allow the private investor to recover their money. It may be through road tolls and so on. In ICT, they recover their investments. So one of the reasons is that the water sector is not commercially attractive. That's why private finance cannot put in money. The other motivations are corporate responsibility for corporates and business to plow back to the community that supports them, but also take care of members of the community that are not well off. The other is if their business contributes to, let's say, the challenges, environmental challenges like global warming, then that motivates them to put some money. So the answer is that the water sector is not commercially attractive. But I mentioned that where the private sector can see an opportunity to earn a profit on the investment, they will come in even without you looking for them. And the presentation by the young man Jamal has shown that waste recycling is profitable. And so even without inviting them, they will come and invest. And in the process, they're helping you to manage the investment. I hope I've answered you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Azza. Now I think Dr. Muhammad Saleh, you can. Yes,
hello?
you can ask. Yes, go ahead.
Good morning, thank you. I have a question of maybe it could be unfolded to different presenters. The question on the payment for ecosystem services, which could be done on voluntary arrangements, and this may apply to also to the pollution, pollution from points or non-point sources. And this could be applied also to NOMBI, not on my backyard. Okay, so if this rule is applied, because normally the discharge of the pollutants of the plastic goes to downstream. So, and not to the source of it. So if we apply a rule on that, so when you pollute, you pay, but also if I don't pollute, also you give me an incentive. And in this case, there is a win-win paradox in this case. And this could be also, I don't know if it is possible to use drones in monitoring the water quality and the pollution with a transboundary perspective. This condition to be transboundary, and if it is binded to the political boundaries, then a legal framework or institutional framework could be put in place. This also could be managed through certification or labeling of products, either agricultural products or forestry products or fishery products that could be labeled or certified as that it contain no pollutants. So this maybe have access to markets, international markets, or or regional markets. Another question goes to Dr. Said. In his presentation, he is just considering the nitrogen, and he's ignoring also the two other components, basic components in fertilization, which are the phosphorus and the potassium, the famous NPK. What is the reason for that? And if this is also tied to the urbanization, because why you need to use heavy heavy fertilizers because there was an error or a mistake in the urbanization, because the urbanization is taking place on agricultural lands, while the desert is used for non-agricultural lands are used for agriculture. That is why you need, in this case, to use heavy fertilization. So what is the remedy for this? What is your advice in this? Could for those who are experiencing heavy or growing demographic trends, what could be done to advise them not to construct on agricultural lands and maybe find an alternative? What innovation could be used to incentivize people to avoid the mistakes of Egypt? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think the first question raised by Muhammad Saleh will be, I think, Miss Mary. I think you can respond about that. Hello, Miss Mary.
Sorry, moderator.
Yeah, I think the first question related to the Miss Mary.
Are you ready? But I think it was a little bit related to payment of ecosystem services.
Actually mixed, because already have like some transboundary talking about the plastic. If you already waste by the plastic in the upstream and already move to the downstream, if you already waste, it means like you should pay to treat. And if I'm in the downstream, not have waste, plastic waste, it means you have like make like give me like incentive something to me. I think related, because already the project, the first one about the marine plastic pollution in the Nile River done by GIZ have something like this. I think so.
It could be also answered by Dr. Azza if possible.
Okay. Dr. Azza, you can respond.
Yes. The way I obtained the question was, he was wondering about the definition of payment for ecosystems, why we say it has to be a voluntary arrangement. According to the concept, something that you want to tag the name payment for ecosystem services scheme has to be voluntary. It is over and above regulatory requirements. So it is something that an individual may contribute to beyond legal obligations. That is when it is given that tag of payment for ecosystem services. However, we note that in the water sector has a number of economic tools that it can apply to manage water resources and water quality. Those include the abstraction, the payment for abstraction the user pays. It includes the polluter pays, and indeed it also includes tax incentives for those that are showing a willingness, let's say, to adopt cleaner production approaches or processes that not end up polluting the environment. So yes, those tools are available, and it is up to the country to see what tools it can take up as a way of encouraging cleaner production and less pollution in the environment. But strictly speaking, the moment you tag something payment for ecosystem, it is voluntary in the definition of that term. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Azza. The other question belongs to Dr. Said. You can respond about 1 minute to respond to that question, because the time is running behind. Dr. Said.
Okay, thank you. Yes, regarding the question of Dr. Yassin, we do consider nitrogen and phosphorus in the models, and those because we know from their impacts on the water, surface water or groundwater, and also the health concern and the eutrophication. We don't consider the potassium because it has less impacts compared to the nutrients, which is namely nitrogen and phosphorus. What we could learn from high fertilization, we know that from research that we can still apply less fertilizer than that's applied now, and we still get more acceptable crop yields. That's concerning. And we also know that from over fertilization, the nitrogen or the nutrient efficiency, it goes down. So that means when you apply more fertilizers, you will not gain much about the crop yield, but also this goes and pollute your environment. So even we learned that in Europe, the loading of fertilizers and manure is reduced, but still the rivers, the loads are coming from the legacy, and that's a major concern. And we are in the Nile Basin, we are in the early phase of what Europe done in the past, so that we could learn from that. Sustainable agriculture strategies and policies, raising the awareness of the farmers about the fertilizations, about when to apply that, because lack of the awareness is a major problem in this issue. So I hope that I answered your question.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Said, and thank you, participant, for the question, and thank you for answering by the paper presenter. Now we'll go to the other session about the panel discussion. We'll introduce the three panelists. The first one, Dr. Nicholas Azza, and the second one, Dr. Said Hamdi. The third one, Engineer Sami Osman. We'll give him the three questions. Everyone have one question to answer it. And after that, looking for, if have a time, can look for the extra question for that. You can join us, Engineer Sami, Dr. Azza, and Dr. Said. Okay, yeah, we'll start with the Engineer Sami. The question: what are the challenges and opportunity for the investment in water quality management in the Nile Basin region?
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed. Okay, challenges and opportunities. I believe the challenges, as part of the presentation, I mentioned like 4 to 5 challenges. First of all, lack of data, reliable data, measured data in the fields, lack of capacity and water quality experts and models, lack of like institutional harmonization and policies, because some countries in the Nile Basin don't even have a water quality policy. So yeah, and strategies, of course. Also awareness, lack of awareness on the importance of water quality. But there are several opportunities. I believe some of the presentations here also mentioned opportunities like managing of plastic waste. This can generate income. The discussion, the answer by Dr. Azza for Ms. Jackie's question also highlights also a lot of opportunities. And management of water quality is critical, similar to management of water resources. They go hand in hand, because you cannot have flows on water which is polluted, and then you just, without any treatment, you give it for drinking or for irrigation. So this could also generate income. I believe several private partners have already developed water treatment plants, wastewater treatment plants, and they get a fee. They get a fee of this treated water in terms of domestic use, in terms of irrigation use, and etc. So there are several opportunities that can be found from the water quality management of the Nile Basin. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Sami. The second question for Dr. Said Hamdi. What are the ongoing efforts to manage the water quality in the Nile Equatorial Nile region? Hello, Dr.
Yes,
Said?
yes, Doctor.
Are you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah, I was
Okay.
just muting myself.
Yes. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, the Equatorial Lakes region, we know that so far from the presenters and what was seen in the presentation, that the Equatorial Lakes region face water quality challenges. It has impacts on water quality, livelihood, biodiversity, and human health. And these sources coming from different sources, from invasive species, habitat degradation, and different pollutants. So to manage these water quality issues, there are different ongoing efforts regarding monitoring and data collection. We have seen from early presentation the hydromet system that was in place. And also we have the project for the Nile Cooperation for Climate Resilience. That's in collaboration between NBI and the East African Community and Lake Victoria Nile Basin Commission. And also regarding this data collection, we have Nile Basin Regional Water Quality Monitoring Baseline Study back in 2005. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that because it does need an update, because that's the first study that covered the entire Nile Basin. But still, I can see in the Nile Basin Initiative report, still using this study, and there's no such update about that, and wish to see more and recent studies about that. And there's also some measures in place regarding watershed management, sustainable agriculture practices, and wastewater treatment efforts in the basin. That include the Lake Victoria Integrated Water Resources Management Program, which aims to improve the capacity building in the region, and also improve the water quality through the wastewater treatment. And they have a case study in Mwanza City, as far as I know. And we know that regarding also the policy and regulation, there are the Nile Basin Framework, the Nile Basin Sustainability Framework, which has interventions for policies and strategies and guidelines. However, this framework is only applicable for projects coordinated by MPI, but outside this project, this framework is not applied. And we have also in place national policies regarding water quality standards in the Equatorial Lakes countries. But again, these policies are set by the different countries, but there is no shared or standardized policy for this region, because one action could be acceptable in one country and the other one is not in place in the other countries, which can have a counter effects on the water qualities. So that's also needed. And also we have regarding controlling invasive species. There is a project, a cooperation actually between Egypt and Uganda regarding aquatic weed controls in Lake Victoria. And this is only focused on the, or concerning more the hyacinths. And that could also be extended to for the equatorial lakes in this controlling the invasive species, because it has great impacts on the water quality and the fisheries in particular. However, there are points to consider, and I wish to raise them regarding because what water quality needs, these efforts needs to have classification of pollutants, like different nutrients, emerging pollutants from pharmaceuticals. We've seen presenters about the water plastic pollution, but we also need to consider microplastics, which has harmful impacts on the health. And also there's heavy metals from mining around the lake shores, etc. So we need classification of different pollutants, and important thing is monitoring them. And as we've seen, Dr. Azza and other reports regarding the financing these projects, we need also financing for the monitoring and the continuation of the monitoring, because it's also important to monitor different items and parameters, but also we need to expand them, because if we didn't monitor them, we cannot improve the water quality. There's some technical consideration also regarding the legacy, that as we know so far, which is we are in the early phase of agricultural intensification, which in the future will definitely impact, and we've seen some of the impacts right now at the moment, but was increased pollution, was increase in fertilizers that will lead to high loading to the water and in the lakes. But that will start to see the problem. Then when the time is to take an action, even if we reduce the load in the future, we're still receiving loads from the memory in the system, because the nitrogen and phosphorus is still on the groundwater and still coming to the rivers, as we can see now in Europe and in the States. There's policies in place to reduce the load, but it's still high levels of loading, and this is coming from past application of the fertilizer. So we don't need to go on this trouble. So it is better to improve. It is better to stop the pollution rather than polluting the water and then refining it, because this will have costs on the water treatment, costs to the health, and costs to the biodiversity. So it's important to consider when representing these policy recommendations to decision makers and policy makers to consider this legacy in the nutrients and the pollutants, and also learn from other countries.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for very good response. The third question going to Dr. Azza. What strategies can we use to leverage mobile's resource for water quality monitoring in the Nile Basin? The floors for you, Dr. Azza.
Thank you, moderator. Water quality monitoring is a recurrent activity. We do it again and again during the year, over the seasons, and we repeat it every year. And from my presentation, I mentioned a large part of that funding comes from the national government. So the water sector needs to target the decision centers on allocation of national finance to convince them about the importance of the water sector, so that it can get the allocations that it needs to be able to carry out these important activities. Even where the sector is to try and access external funding, still the decision is made by the national ministries of finance to borrow. So it is important that the people in the Ministry of Finance and the people in the parliament that pass the different sector budgets are aware of the importance of the water sector in general and water quality management in particular. So we need good studies, variation studies, articulating this importance in economic terms. If we don't carry out, if we don't make this investment in monitoring, and as a result there is pollution, how much additional cost in treating water that is polluted? How much cost does the nation incur in treating people that are sick, in people that are unable to go and produce economically in their fields because they are sick, and so on? Those figures need to be articulated and then brought to the attention of decision makers in the ministries of finance and in the national parliaments. It is also important, as a second strategy, that information that is collected from the monitoring networks must be seen to be used in supporting decision making, because otherwise the question will be asked year after year. We give you allocations to run your networks. What comes out of the networks? So it is important that the data collected visibly can be seen to support decision making, and information products need to be prepared and used as decision making, but also be used to raise general awareness. In the general public, there is not that much knowledge about the importance of water quality. People's knowledge stops at if they have water in their homes. About the work that is needed to prevent it from being polluted, they don't know about. So there is more work to be done in raising general awareness. It is also important as a strategy to improve efficiency of monitoring networks by adopting new technologies that are cheaper. One of the branches is in citizen science. The presentations in yesterday's webinar showed that the technologies are becoming cheaper. It is getting easier and easier to buy simple monitoring kits that we can engage our citizens to use and provide us with valuable information, and therefore forecast on the costs of operating the networks in the traditional manner. I also mentioned where we are to try to tap into external transfers. We need to have the ability to prepare good projects that can get funded. So there is need to build capacity in those areas of preparing project proposals, but also understanding the new opportunities which are out there, because people in the water sector are not traditionally experts in finance. They don't know how to tap into climate finance. They don't know how to tap into green bond finance and so on. So there is capacity building that is needed there. Finally, the water sector needs to be better at capitalizing on disasters. Every time natural disasters happen, it is also an opportunity to stress the importance of the water sector. We have a lot of natural disasters happening. We have droughts and floods. Those are opportunities. Droughts commonly destroy infrastructure. So you need to use those to stress the importance of monitoring that can provide information to avert disasters. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Azza. And thank you, the panelists, Engineer Sami and Dr. Said. Now coming to wrap up the session and webinar at all. Okay. The webinar is already have like a very high value paper. We are starting by the application of the multi-criteria decision analysis for ranking of identifying water quality hotspot in the Nile Basin, and going further for the for integrated modeling of the nutrient dynamic in the Nile River, and going further for managing the plastic waste and improve the access of affordable and the clean energy in case study about Kuka venture, and going further for the plastic monitoring of plastic pollution for the strategy and learning for strategies for effective monitoring in the management of the plastic pollution in the Nile River. And after that, going for the very important things to support for all the effort with the water quality monitoring, about the financing water quality management in the Nile region. Actually, the paper is already covered properly the investing in the water quality management. After finishing the paper, going to the panel discussion about the what the challenge of the opportunity to investment in water quality management in the Nile Basin for all, even for it means cover the two main region, Eastern Nile and Nile region. Going further for the what are the ongoing effort for the manage the water quality in the Nile region. Going for the last question for the panelists about what is the strategy can you use to leverage and mobilize resource in the water quality monitoring in the Nile Basin. And the panelists already give the like a solid response for these 3 questions. And I think the key message for this webinar need more elaboration, more discussion, and more financing support to give the Nile Basin or Nile River the proper water quality management and monitoring, and support the whole Nile Basin country to live in very good water quality, water from Nile. And I think if can allow Dr. Jane to finalize and to end the session. Dr. Jane, the floor is for you.
Okay. Thank you, moderator.
It's because
Okay.
Dr. John is
Yeah, I was having
is
some
not here. Echo, yeah.
some technical problems with the sounding system. Okay, thank you, Dr. Ahmed, for a good moderation. Just to supplement to the wrap-up, it's very important to highlight also during the keynote speech of NITAC Uganda, Dr. Florence, the multidisciplinary nature of water quality management, which require involvement of several actors and sectors, which include institution, policy standard, the law, public and the private sector. And also the highlight of many all of available opportunities in water quality management. Also, I would like also to thank to all the participants and the presenters to this session. It has attracted at least 66 participants, and we've had a good discussion and a fruitful discussion. As concluding, I would like to invite you all to the afternoon session. We have another session starting at 2 p.m., which will be on thematic area. We are still in the thematic area 2, and we will focus on general environmental management. And tomorrow also we'll have another session on aquatic ecosystem under threat from anthropogenic activities. Without taking much of your time, I thank you all and wish you a good day. Thank you and bye.
Thank you.
Thank
you
very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Moderator.